Good afternoon, everybody. Just checking in. Just wanted to talk to you about something in regards to writing screenplays in particular. So, the other day I was talking with my writing partner, as well as I've spoken with a few others about it as well. But the importance of mining your own life for material for a story or a screenplay that you're working on, I think is very important. You have to research yourself as much as when you research foreign topics that you're not familiar with, for when you're writing a screenplay, creating a story, whatever the case may be. This just goes out to writers in general, like it could be fiction, nonfiction. You got to do heavy research for a topic that you're writing about, especially if you're not familiar with it. But even when you are familiar with it, you got to cover all bases. You got to make sure you understand the details and the nuances of whatever it is that you're writing about. You have to know more than what you deliver. Even Jordan Peterson spoke about that. He's like, if you're writing an essay, you have to know more than what you're speaking about, what you're talking about, what you're writing about. You got to know it inside and out, especially if it's a complex issue. Like, for example, I'm working on an article right now called The Rise of SNY Gangs in California Prisons and What It Says About Modern America. Now, for those who aren't familiar, SNY gangs are sensitive needs yards gangs, security threat groups in the California prison system. It's a very complex, contentious, and hot button issue within gang culture, within the California prison system, within the prison YouTube genre, which is a thing. For those who don't know, like, there is a genre of a specific subculture on YouTube that revolves around gang culture and prison culture, and it's utterly fascinating. There's a multitude a multitude of different influencers within that space. Fascinating individuals, a lot of them very smart, very well read, very well spoken, a lot of book smarts and street smarts. Anyway, not to get too far into that, I'll talk about that in another video. But the importance of mining your own life for material, the importance of knowing who you are inside and out. Because a lot of the characters, especially the protagonists in your screenplays or your short stories or your novels, are going to be either based on you directly or indirectly based on you, in the sense of, this is a character that represents a belief you hold or a conflict that you are struggling with. So one thing that YouTuber and screenwriter Tyler Mowry talks about is philosophical conflict. For anyone who is familiar with his channel, I believe now it's called Top Development, if I'm not mistaken. It's still Tyler Mowry, I believe. But anyway, he's great. He's a really smart kid, man. Learned a lot from him. And for anyone that knows him, he speaks a lot about what is called philosophical conflict. And I've never heard it articulated in that fashion before I started listening to him. Not like that. And that I would say made things a lot more clear to me when it comes to screenplays and storytelling. So philosophical conflict is basically the clashing of your beliefs with other people. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Some moron was just sitting there in the middle of the road. Anyway. So basically, philosophical conflict is when you have a belief about the world, or the way the world should be, or the way one should live life. And when that belief clashes with another person's, that's philosophical conflict. They're competing ideas on the way one should live life, or the way the world should be, essentially. And you see this in the best stories, philosophical conflict. You see the beliefs of people clashing up against each other, fighting for control and influence over the way the world should be, or the way one's life should be lived. Essentially, to put it simply, that's philosophical conflict. So, I think it's important for you as a writer to know what you believe, to be able to articulate your beliefs, to be able to defend your beliefs. That's important, even if you're not a writer. The importance of defending your beliefs. And ultimately, to defend them, you got to know what your beliefs are. So now one might think that, well, I'm who I am. I'm me. Of course, I know myself inside and out. I really don't think that's the case. I think a lot of us, even writers, non-writers, whoever, have difficulty articulating what it is that they believe. I've struggled with that as well, where I possessed beliefs and I wasn't exactly sure where they came from, how they came about, why I believed them. I'm sure they were just perhaps cultural customs that I had adopted naturally, as many people do, based on whatever culture you grow up in, whatever subculture you're a part of. You naturally adopt the beliefs of those around you as well as the larger society around you. And it's important that you question these beliefs. And the beliefs that you do hold, that you vehemently latch onto, you got to understand what they are. First of all, articulate what they are and why you believe them. You really have to explore that. You got to know why you believe what you believe. And it's also important that you understand the opposing viewpoint. And you got to know the ins and outs of the opposing viewpoint. And it will only grow your understanding of your own beliefs as well. So it's very important. I think it's important that you sit down. You can do it bullet points, you can do it freestyle, however you want to do it. But I would look at it like journaling. You sit down and you write out all of your beliefs, all of your experiences, the major aspects of your life that were consequential or shaped who you were as a human being. You got to explore that. And you got to understand how that affected you, how that influenced you. It's very important. And this is not a quick, easy process. This can take a while, depending on who you are. I think for anybody, this is a process that's not quick. It's not overnight. To really articulate and understand what it is you believe and why you believe it, and how the experiences you've undergone have affected your life and your mentality and your worldview, your outlook as an individual. It's important to understand these things. I think it is for anybody, if you ask me, but especially if you're a writer. You got to understand what your beliefs are and why you believe them. You got to understand how traumatic situations have affected you in your life. My birthday was the other day, and I was sitting there doing research for a script I'm working on. And, in the research process now that I have discovered through Tyler Mowry's YouTube channel the specifics of what philosophical conflict is and how you implement that into a story, I will always brainstorm what the philosophical conflict and beliefs are of the characters that I'm writing about. And oftentimes these characters possess pieces of myself. I think a lot of writers do that. Various characters represent beliefs that you hold, or maybe things that you're conflicted about. And I was just going through crucial moments in my life growing up. Childhood is a huge thing for writers. Like, that childhood trauma is gold. Like, you got to look at it as gold. Not only do you have to let it build you in life, you can't let it break you, you got to let it build you, but you got to use it to gain a deeper understanding of the human condition, of society, and ultimately of yourself and where you stand in this world. Who are you in this world? What is your identity? Like, sometimes you'll be in a job interview and people will say, like, tell me who you are. Maybe not that basic of a question, but I've gotten that question when I was a younger man, and embarrassingly enough, I didn't know how to answer it, and I'm sure my answer sounded jumbled and inarticulate. And clearly, for anyone who was listening when I was asked that question, who was listening to my answer, could tell that, I haven't really thought that through. I didn't know how to describe who I was as a person. Where do you start? Where you're from, who your parents were, where you went to school, what kind of job you have. Like, those aren't the things that make you who you are. You got to understand what kind of person you are, and it's not easy to articulate. So I think for any writer who wants to really achieve excellence as a writer, whether it be a screenwriter or a novelist, a short story writer, even journalists, right? I know that's a little bit different, but still. For anyone who wants to achieve excellence as a writer, the most excellent filmmakers and screenwriters, the way they achieve excellence is they understand the beliefs that they grapple with, and they have a deep understanding of the experiences that they've undergone and how they have been affected by those experiences. And they understand how to attach that to the broader culture. Like, who are you specifically and where do you stand within the culture that you're a part of? You got to connect the internal to the external. You got to understand the cultural zeitgeist, and you got to understand who you are as an individual and where you fit into this big puzzle that we call life, that we call culture, that we call existence. This is a very complex world, especially right now in 2024. Things are as complex as it gets right now. It makes me think back to that Charles Dickens book, A Tale of Two Cities, that classic opening line. For anyone who even has a basic grasp or understanding of literature will remember that line. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And that's what 2024 feels like. Maybe every time feels like that. I don't know. However, I will say this. For a writer, it is absolutely crucial for you to gain a deep understanding of who you are and the world around you. You have to become an excellent storyteller to gain a deep understanding of structure and attach that to your personal experience and the things that interest you. And you also got to figure out how that fits into the broader culture as well. You got to find that balance, essentially. You look at great filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, Oliver Stone, the Safdie brothers, Sean Baker, Quentin Tarantino, all the great filmmakers, man. Like, they know how to tell a very unique story, but attach it to the culture in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, basically, you got to figure out your unique perspective on the world around you. And in order to do that, you got to know who you are. And that's not an easy task. You really have to really sit down and think in silence sometimes. You got to sit down and think. You got to get a notebook. You got to open that bad boy up and you got to start writing shit down. You got to dig through all that dirt to get to the truth of who it is that you are. It's very important. If you want to become an excellent writer, an excellent filmmaker, an excellent artist, you got to know who you are, you got to understand who you are, and you got to understand the world around you. So we'll talk more about this again, but that's something I really wanted to hit on, because that's not really something that is taught very much in film school. I'm sure some teachers have spoken about that or spoken in regards to that, but essentially it's something that a lot of artists and writers and filmmakers, I think, really need to focus on, is understand who you are and understand what the world is and how you fit into it. I think that's important. I think it's very important. Martin Scorsese contributed a vast deal of excellent art to the cultural zeitgeist because he knows who he is, or is at least discovering who he is, and he has an understanding of how the world is around him. There are certain slices of the world that you're not going to be privy to, but you got to find those subcultures, and you got to find those slices of existence that represent how the world works and what the world is. Essentially, those subcultures that can act as a microcosm for the world around you. So basically, Martin Scorsese, for example, I always reference him because he's one of the greats. He's the filmmaker who inspired me to even pursue a career in screenwriting and filmmaking in the first place, and I think for good reason. He tends to explore, while he has a wide range in many ways, he also explores the the conflict between your dedication and loyalty to God versus your worldly desires and temptations. He explores criminal subcultures, oftentimes the mafia subculture, and he explores deep, meaningful truths about America and about the world through these subcultures that he explores. He may not have a firm understanding of every single thing that's going on in the world. I think it's difficult for anyone to do that, even a president, for example, because there's so much shit going on, right? But you got to find multiple slices of life, existence, and culture. You got to understand how they operate, how individuals within them operate, what they think, what they feel, what they struggle with. And you got to explore that through your writing in some fashion. Figure out what subculture you're interested in and passionate about and explore it thoroughly. So, Martin Scorsese, during the commentary for the film Gangs of New York, he was talking about how he studied ancient Mesopotamian literature. You might ask yourself, what does ancient Mesopotamian literature have to do with gang culture in New York in the late 1800s, the birth of gangs in America? Well, it has to do a lot with that actually, because he's writing, or he created a film about gangs in America, but he also studied the ancient empires, the rise and fall of ancient empires and civilizations, the rise and fall of Rome, the rise and fall of these Mesopotamian societies. You got to know history, you got to know politics, anthropology, psychology, sociology. These are all topics that some people may disagree with me, but I think it's very worthwhile that you at least dip your toes in the waters of many of these topics, because they can open your mind and just broaden your perspective to such a degree that you start to see that all the dots start to connect. Many dots will start to connect. I'm writing a script. I've been writing a script since 2015, multiple drafts. I've written other projects as well, but this has been one of my babies. It's based on a true story. It's about the birth and rise and conquest of a tagging crew in the San Fernando Valley. It's about the transformation of a tagging crew into a Sureño street gang. So at first I didn't realize this, but I found it very useful to study history, the rise and fall of empires, group psychology, group dynamics, the culture wars that we are currently experiencing in America, to understand how tribes operate, tribalism. All these things serve to benefit my understanding of just this specific subculture, gang culture in Los Angeles, because there were aspects about it that I could connect to history and society and culture at large. So you got to understand the big picture and the small picture and how those things connect. I think that's very important. If I've been all over the place today, my apologies. I was doing a lot of research yesterday, so my brain is a little bit worn out. I was doing like 6 hours of research yesterday, but this is a topic I wanted to speak about, and it's been a little bit too long since I uploaded a video. I'm trying to be consistent with it, but I've had a lot of shit on my plate, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I wanted to take a drive, clear my head, and check in with you guys and just talk to you about this because I think it's very important. So, to end this, just remember, because I know I rambled a little bit, just remember, if you're a writer, take time to sit down with a notebook, write down key events in your life, how you think those impacted you, write down what your beliefs are, what the opposing beliefs are, figure out the conflict between those two, why you believe what you believe. Your beliefs, your traumas, your experiences, the films and stories and TV shows that you like, why you like those specifically, why these projects speak to you, and really just use that to gain a deeper understanding of who you are. This will do wonders for your writing. It'll take you to a different level. You obviously gotta get better at writing by writing, rewriting, getting feedback, understanding structure, reading books. You can't just do any one of these things. You got to do all of them. It's a long process. It's a journey. If you're going to be a writer, you got to be in it for the long haul. But the importance of understanding who you are what your life experience is and how to articulate it, and connecting that to the broader culture around you. And find specific subcultures you find interesting. It could be samurai culture. It could be, like me, Chicano gang culture is a subculture that I've been entrenched in since I was a teenager and began to write about when I started going to film school. It's in the way that Martin Scorsese talks about life in the mob. That's my equivalent to that. Like, I'm that passionate about that culture in the way Martin Scorsese is with the mob culture, whether it be the Italian mob, the Irish mob. Anyway, the point is, find those things that speak to you, that you're curious about, that you're interested in, that you're passionate about. Figure out who you are. Figure out why you're passionate about these things. And this will help you articulate the themes of the scripts you're writing, of the stories you're working on. Like, it helps you articulate the philosophical conflict that you want to grapple with. So, I know that was kind of a long one, but I wanted to share that with you, and we can get even more in depth about that in the future, because I think it's a complex topic that's worth exploring. So, yeah, happy Sunday. Hope everyone's having a good day. Hope everyone's staying blessed. I got the windows up so the sound quality is good, and now it's getting really hot. I'm probably starting to sweat, aren't I? Yeah, my bad. But anyway, so listen, I just wanted to speak about that, the importance of knowing who you are and what the world is around you as a screenwriter. I'm paying attention to a lot of the stuff that's going on in our culture right now. A lot of the culture wars, not everything going on in politics, because you only have so much time in a day. I still got my 9-to-5 job, so I can only do so much. You know, I gotta have my Eisenhower matrix going and prioritize what's important. You know, I was just holding up traffic. Anyway, so like I said, we'll get more into depth about that in the future, but I just want to leave you with that. Know yourself. Know thyself, like the ancient oracle of Delphi. I think that's what it is. Know thyself, right? And you got to know what the world is around you too, and find specific subcultures you're passionate about that represent the beliefs you want to tackle and the conflicts you want to explore. So yeah, that's it. Hope everyone's having an amazing day, like I said, and until next time, my friends, peace out.